Welcome to the Encouragement Engineering Podcast, where we help people to combat the negativity that inundates our daily lives with a positive perspective and positive action. Today's guest is Stacy McAlpine. Stacy is a founder and CEO of Journey Fuel and a life transformation specialist. Stacy has been helping people actualize their desires for more than 20 years. Over the course of a former career working for renowned firms as a strategic advisor and project and change management consultant, Stacy discovered the life-altering magic-making power of applying what she was doing for her consulting clients to achieve the results they wanted, to herself to achieve the changes she wanted in her own life. After refining these revolutionary tools over the last decade, she has created a life transformation program through her company Journey Fuel to bring these code-cracking methods to individuals like you and me and empowering the millions wanting more out of life to unleash their own true potential and live lives we all love to wake up to. So please welcome to the show, Stacy McAlpine. Stacy, thank you so much for taking the time today. I really appreciate it.
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Well, great, great. Well, why don't we start off? Let's tell people about you. I always like the guests to understand who they're listening to. So tell us about you and how you got to where you are today.
Sure. Well, it was 1976. No, just kidding. Um,
You like Les
yeah, so
Brown.
right. So in my professional career, I have spent the last, 20 plus years in the consulting industry after graduating from Berkeley
Okay.
and was doing the business thing, business major, going and doing the consulting thing. And I loved what I did, which was project management, process improvement, change management, which people are like, what is that?
Yeah.
In other words, it's helping clients do things that they've never done before effectively, basically, in a nutshell. And so I did that for about 20 years for some of the big companies. I worked with Ernst& Young and Deloitte, Bearing Point, that's now Deloitte, and PricewaterhouseCoopers, blah, 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 right? All those words.
All the
And
big three-letter companies.
yeah, there you go. EY, PwC,
Yeah.
right? A little easier to say. So I did that for a long time. And then about a decade ago, I just was burned out and,
Mhm.
working the 50, 60-hour weeks. Had the little one with one on the way, a stepdaughter that I was raising. My husband at the time was in law school full time. We were living
Wow.
on one income, living near DC, which is a very expensive place to
Yeah.
live. And I was just burned out. But I didn't know what to do differently. Like I
Right.
think so many people out there could relate in that scenario where it's like I want something different, but how the hell am I going to do that? Like
Yeah.
what responsibility can I let go of? Well, none.
Yeah,
Where can
exactly.
I take a pay cut? Well, I can't.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but something did need to change. My lifestyle just needed to change. And so I just doubled down on some of the personal development stuff that I'd been learning, like a big nerd since seventh grade. Uh, you know, Stephen Covey,
It's good
kicked
stuff.
it all off, right?
Uh,
Exactly. But I still wasn't doing it. And so, my bio sort of referenced it. So, I won't, go too deep. But basically, I just was like, well, what is the deal? If I know what to do, I've read all the books, I've, done all the little worksheets, but I'm making massive change for my clients. Why am I not changing? Why don't I do what if I pretend I'm a client
there you go.
and did what I do for my clients to myself? And it just totally clicked. So I was just using the same methods that are proven methodologies that clients pay literally millions of dollars for consultants to come in and use to effectively get the result they want. And so I just started doing that to myself with all these personal development tips and tricks and things that we all, read about, but then it's
Right.
time to do it. And it's like, yeah, where am I going to find the bandwidth to do that? Right. So, so I cracked the code and practiced it myself for a decade and it worked. And I started being able to use it with other people. And now I've shifted completely out of working and making change in big companies to making change for individuals using some of these consulting techniques that other organizations out there in personal development aren't using. And it
Wow.
actually helps you walk the talk, if you will, because it gives you the tools and techniques to do it.
And that's great because you talk about, transforming from the life of shoulds into loving lives. And
Right?
aligning your life with what matters most for you. I think that's
Yes,
critical for people to understand because, like you said, you're busy as a mom, you're busy as an employee doing all this stuff. And then it's like, oh, yeah, what happened to me? And we got to
right.
remember, how do you help people to? Sometimes people think that may be selfish. So, how do you help them to focus on that outlook of taking that time to build your strength, take action on your personal goals?
Right.
Tell us about that.
Well, it really starts with being aware of the fact that you're in a place that you're not being authentic, right?
Mhm.
Big change management principle that I use that I was sharing before that, some of these techniques that I'm referring to. There's a change management methodology that a lot of consultants will get certified in that
Right.
uses a method called ADKAR, which stands for awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement. And, a lot of us do the knowledge piece first, or we'll be like, why trying to build desire in ourselves to get something to be different. But without the awareness first and at a level of depth of like, really, what is it?
Right.
What is it that's I don't want in my life anymore? But not so much like, what do I do differently? But where I found it to be most powerful is how are you feeling and how do you want to feel instead? And
Mm.
use the how do I feel instead of what do I want instead. And it just messes with your head a little. Like it takes you to a different place
Yeah.
of solutioning. So it's kind of an interesting technique that when I learned that, my mind was like, what do you mean? How do I want to feel instead? I just want to not feel like this anymore, right? Um, but it's really a powerful thing because, like you were saying, I'm not questioning if people want something different, but so many of us can be like, oh, I don't know what I want instead.
Right.
And then that can just be paralyzing. So if you take it to a different approach, I mean, what I explain in my programs is life is just a collection of feelings and experiences. That's all it is. It
Yeah.
is an experience of feelings.
Yeah.
Basic, right? It's not the car, it's not the people, it's not the job, it's the feelings we get from the car and the people and the job,
Yeah.
right? So it's just a collection of feelings. So when we bring it to that level, like everybody can do that.
Yeah.
Everybody can say, okay, I'm feeling something. What am I feeling? This is what I'm feeling. Well, how do I want to feel instead? And then be able to use that information to say, okay, like in the question that you were asking, like how do I do something different? Well, what is it that you want to feel, and what's one thing you can do that'll get you closer to it, so you don't have to solve everything.
Right.
You just start small enough to feel like it's feasible to do something until you can have more capacity to think about bigger stuff to make the bigger change.
You said a key thing there, and I'm going to remind everybody, hopefully you heard what you just said. You don't have to solve it all. Okay. Take the step. Okay. Imagine
Yeah,
your feeling. It's your reverse engineering, and that's great.
exactly.
But you don't have to figure out the whole path. Take the step.
Exactly.
You don't
Yeah.
climb a ladder by jumping to the top. It's one rung at a time. And as a person that doesn't have much patience, I understand that. But it's you want it now, but it
Right.
takes time. It really takes time because you do have to adjust who you are and realize you can have what you want. I think that's so important and understanding that feeling. And
For
like you said,
sure.
how do you get there? Well, it's going to take some time. That's where it takes that time to even evaluate yourself. Um,
Right.
do you find that people have a hard time doing that sometimes?
For sure.
Yeah.
I mean, for sure. And, I was one of them for a long time. And one of the things in project management that I would do with clients. So I managed projects from standing up the Defense Center of Excellence for Psychological Health and Traumatic Brain Injury for the Department of Defense, big mouthful, to putting in a new IT system for, $1 billion financial organization and working with Google on how to do policy compliance checks, right? None
Right.
of those have anything to do with one another.
Right.
And I don't know how to do any of those things, but I managed the projects by outlining at the beginning of the project. My skill set was, what is it that the outcome that you want to achieve? What's the
Right.
outcome? Not we have a project to do, not we're going to implement a system, not we're going to stand up an organization. What is the outcome
Right.
that you're looking to achieve. So like the big mouthful center of excellence, right? Psychological health, traumatic brain injury, which is an incredibly rewarding project, um, was the outcome is to help reduce the impact of war on our veterans,
Right.
right? And create our military and their families,
Yeah.
and the impact that all of that has on, all the psychological effects, all the traumatic brain injury. Like it's a legit thing. And they wanted to be able to really focus on that and not just have it be something else. But how can we help with resilience? How can we prevent it? How can we, support recovering from that, right? That's the outcome.
Hmm.
It's different from standing up an organization
Right.
to
Oh yeah,
deliver. So
definitely. Yeah.
very different. And so then once you have the outcome, right? So it's kind of like what I was talking about feeling. Now you have an outcome. It's
Yeah.
not, I don't want to feel this instead. No, I want to feel joy. Let's just use something basic.
Right.
Pretty much anybody could probably relate to, right? I want to feel joy. Okay, so, well, what are the things that would bring that to life, right? So if we use the example of the Defense Center of Excellence, it would be, okay, well, what are the objectives we would need to have in place to achieve, to know that we're getting that outcome? Okay, well, we need to make sure we have these things in place from a structural
Right.
perspective. Okay, if we had that, then what else would we need? Oh, we'd need psychological support. Okay, what else would we need? We'd need some partnerships, right? With, things like the NFL. They partnered with the NFL and looking at their helmets and how to
Right.
get better helmets, like cool stuff, right? But so it's okay. Now, if you meet these objectives and you don't want 93, right? You
No.
want
No.
maybe 4.
Yeah.
Three's
Exactly.
good, but what are the objectives that when you meet those objectives, you will achieve that outcome. And so
Right.
it now becomes smaller.
Right.
Now it's not so giant. And then within each one of those, and this is what I do with my Walk the Talk weekend program and my accelerator program with my people, is I take these concepts, but I take all the boring language out.
Yay.
Objectives
All
and
right.
strategy
Yeah.
and goals, right? It's
Right.
let's do a map. Where do you want to be? What are your destinations? Where do you want to go? What would that be like when you're there, right? And so then when you have those objectives, you could say, okay, what are some of the steps that you would take to get to each one of those? And you break each one of those down. And then you create what I call, like a dashboard where, okay, how do you know when you get there? What are
Right.
some indicators that you would know you made it? And when you have those core pieces, then it's smaller. It's not
Yeah.
this big thing like, oh, let's,
Mm.
save everybody from psychological health problems. Like that's a big
Yeah.
thing, right? That's huge. But if we now are working toward, but we just need three things in place. Okay. And this is how we know we're going to get there. And you can easily do that to your life, right? If
Right.
you want joy, okay, what are some things that would bring what would you need in your life to have joy? Okay, I'd want these, these types of things in my life. Okay, so how would you know when those things are there? Oh, you would have this, and this. Okay, great. Well, what's one thing you can do? One thing that would get you closer to that outcome, right?
Right.
So you're not just randomly taking a step. You don't have to your point, which is a big point that you were, reinforcing for sure, is you don't have to know how,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Tony Robbins calls it the tyranny of how,
Right.
but it's true. I mean, it's the second, if we all had to know how to do stuff that we've never done before, we'd never do anything we'd never done before.
Right. Yeah.
So when you get clarity on what it is you want instead, and even not so much what you want from things and a stuff and a outcome type of thing, but what are the feelings in your life that you want to experience,
Right.
and then it opens up a whole thing, right? Because now you can start to think about, oh, well, that means I want to have a boat and go fishing with my friends. Or what if I can't get that boat? Okay, what's another way I could do it, right? So it's not just I want a boat,
Yeah.
it's I want this feeling. And then you can have all kinds of things that can bring you that feeling.
Right. And that's such a great reminder for people. It doesn't have to be these huge things. And you touched on something else too, because with the passing of Queen Elizabeth, you know what I noticed?
Yeah.
All these people share their love and affection of her. You know what she's taking with her? Same thing she came into this world with, nothing.
Right.
No physical thing goes with you. It's the
Right.
feelings and how you touch people's hearts and how you touch people's lives that makes a difference. It's the
Yep.
experiences. It's not the stuff. You can't take it
Right.
with you. We can't take anything with us. Give the feelings, give the experiences, give the love. That's, you talk about joy. That is joy, giving that to
Yeah.
others and watching their expression, watching their feeling, watching their reaction. Um,
Absolutely.
wow. So great reminders for people here. I think this is, really good. What would be one question you encourage people to ask that might help them to get into action? I think the key phrase
Yeah.
here is that action, because it's taking that action.
Yeah. Well, when we look at the boring word ADKAR with the change management model, it's well, once you have the awareness,
Yeah.
right? So now this is how I'm feeling, this is how I want to feel instead. And why is the desire, the D? Why do you want that? Not because of I don't want to be miserable. Well, what is it going to bring into your world if you could pull this off, right? Like, what is that? What is life going to be like? And then what is life going to be like if you don't do it?
Right.
Because let's throw another one to Tony Robbins, right? People don't change to achieve pleasure. People change to avoid pain.
Pain. Exactly. Yes.
So if we think it's more painful to stay the same, we aren't going to change. We could come up with whatever, we could read all books, we could do all the cool, goals and objectives and writing it all out there. But if we aren't going to feel more pain staying the same, that's just going to be a pretty decoration in our notebook that we never look at,
Right.
right?
How many
And
people have
so,
notebooks
yeah.
like that sitting in their closet?
Oh my gosh,
Yes.
right? Yeah, I'm creating my own planning, I call it my life navigation uh
Oh,
system. But I'm trying to look for another word for system. System
yeah.
just seems too
Too
triggery
technical.
for me, right? But and so I, looking at all these things that are already in the market that I've looked forever for the solution, right? But then it's always missing something. But they all 98%, probably even 99, start with what do you want?
Yeah.
No wonder it's like paralyzing, right? And so you
Yeah.
start writing stuff, but you're not starting from the place in your heart of how do I want life to feel? Because feelings are going to give us the motion, right?
Right.
Emotion creates motion. And, you could tell I did my Tony Robbins training. Um, but I mean, and that's like another example, right? I knew all that stuff. Well,
Right.
yeah, hot tip, Stace, like never heard of that. Thanks, that'll change my life, right? No, it's now how do you apply it?
Yeah.
So not so much like how do you solve the problem, but how can I apply it is
Yeah.
something that's a technique that you can, use over and over. So to your point of how to get in action, it's all right. So do you have clarity on the awareness of what it is that you want to stop in your life and what is why? Like, what's the feeling it's giving you?
Right.
And what feeling would you like to have instead and why? And what happens if you don't? What is your life like if you don't experience that feeling?
Right.
And then it starts to become like, well, hell, I don't want that. That's a miserable place. I
Yeah.
was when I got into action building my own company, which is Journey Fuel. I called it because it keeps you going, right? Things that keep you going. You need the fuel to keep
Right.
going. But um, it's about how do you get in action and keep going and keep it moving. And it comes down to knowing why and being able to apply the technique of, okay, if I get some more clarity on this, then you need to be certain,
Right.
right? You need to be certain. And so how do you get the certainty? That's the should test, like you talked about earlier.
Yep.
It's, well, should I do, is this like a should, you know, is this a should? Do I feel like I should want to do this? Should I, I should go to the gym. Well, why do you
Yeah.
want to go to the gym? Is there any other solution? Well, I want to feel good. Okay, if I want to feel good, is that the only way that you can feel good? Like
Right.
that was in alignment with your values?
Yeah.
Like, is there anything else, right? What is the outcome you want? I want to feel fit. I want to be trim. Okay, what other things could you be doing that you would want to do? And then start picking something else just because maybe it's not the gym. Maybe it's calling up your best friend and saying, let's walk to the bar instead of drive,
There you go. How about that? There's a lot of
right?
positives to that. Yeah.
There's a lot of things you can do and want to do it, right?
Yeah.
And get the benefit of the outcome, getting to the outcome you want. It's a matter of letting go of the shoulds and starting to think about the feeling you want. and what could give you that feeling. And then there's so many choices. Like you now have so many options, right? So keep
Think of
going
that
until you,
hope you're bringing people. I mean, the options. You're bringing them options. It's like, wow, wait, I didn't realize, okay, I could do it this way, I could do it that way. And that's part of that
right.
barrier of overcoming that fear stop of all this stuff. One thing, one little thing,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Um, wow, great reminder for people and great examples again. I mean, it always reminds me that should and would and could, you don't want to should all over yourself. um
Right.
but I look back at it as, okay, the person that wants to go to the gym, okay, what are the benefits? Well, you exercise, you start to get trim, you start to feel better. Your heart isn't under such stress, your muscles aren't under such stress, you'll start to lose weight, you'll feel better, your breathing can be eased, you may start reduction of medicines that you've been on because of the weight.
Yep.
The idea of staying out of a box, big or small, is pretty good to me. I like being on the
Right.
green side of the grass, so I'm going to
Yeah,
try to make
exactly.
sure I stay there. you know
Yep.
that's good in center.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh,
Well, and then what if you don't, right?
right,
What
right.
if you don't?
Well, and that's the thing. I've seen people that didn't, and
Yeah.
they end up in a box, and it's not fun. And
Yeah.
there's life choices that it's not a good alternative. But we all have to learn that. We all have our time to learn that. So hopefully it's sooner than later. But we'll get there. We'll stay on the positive side. Um,
Well, just one thing on that too is, I mean, it's another one of those personal development exercises to write all this stuff out, right? And
yes.
then it's time to do it. And you're like, like I was definitely there. I mean, I fell off the workout wagon a while ago and I'm
Mhm.
just trying to get myself back on and I'm using my own techniques with myself. I'm like, why am I not doing this? What is the feeling I want? I knew why, which is my why wasn't powerful enough, right? I wasn't
I'm in
powerful
sneak.
enough. Like,
Yeah.
right? It's like, yeah, I want to go to the dressing room and look nice. Well, that's just, I don't care anymore. That one's not working. Okay, well,
No,
why do
no.
I want to do it? I want to do it for these reasons, right? And then what if
Yeah.
I don't? And if it's not working, either it's a should,
Yeah.
maybe you don't ever want to go to the gym. Maybe it's much better. And this is not a judgment. Like some
Yeah.
people literally don't need to be a size 6.
Right.
If your life is not threatened and you don't want to be a size, like being a size 6 is a big should, then maybe you don't want it enough to change. And
Right.
that's a good way of checking in with yourself. It's like, I'm going to stop thinking about this because I have other things that I care more about in my life
Yeah.
that I want to spend all this self-judgment energy on something else, So it all comes back to the why. Why do I care? Why am I not taking action? Like, what is it about it? What is the feeling I'm getting when I think about taking action? How do I want to feel
Right.
instead? Like that feeling trick is really mind blowing if you start to do it all the time. It sounds squishy, right? It's so funny. I have a friend that it used to be a colleague of mine. She's like, "Are you going to get all crunchy granola on me? Because that's not who I am."
That's fun.
But feelings are one of those things where it doesn't have to be that squishy. It's just, okay, how am I feeling? I don't want to feel that.
Yeah.
Well, that's not helpful. I want to feel this. Okay. If I want to feel that, is that the only way I can get there? Is there
Right.
something else? And
And you
just
can ask
brainstorm.
others. Others
Yeah,
have done this. There's other people that have
exactly.
experiences of ways to do this too. That, you know, the one thing you have to believe is that you have the capability to do this. You have the strength
Yeah,
within you to do this. I think it's important. You talk about the why, and Dean Graziosi talked about this. You need to ask yourself why about 7 times so you can get to that
yep,
root of that true feeling of
yep,
why you want to do this. 7 times. And
yeah.
you get deeper each level. It's interesting. It's very interesting.
Yeah, and that's a technique consultants use too, like Lean Six Sigma, which is
Right.
one of those things that they call it the five whys, I think, but
Yeah.
seven, by then you've got to get somewhere from an emotional perspective, right?
Right.
But
Right.
and this is sort of an interesting thought for people from how can consulting change the way personal development is activated, right? It's not people aren't teaching these techniques in the personal development stage, which is why I nerded out. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can totally help people
Yeah.
with these things that people aren't. haven't been trained in,
Right.
obviously.
Right.
So it's no judgment. It's like they just aren't there. They haven't been taught, and they haven't been taught in a fun way. Like I said, this stupid, boring, like same language. You open the book, you fill out your goals, you write down your thing, and and you close it up and you do the same thing. So how do we change it, right? But the point being is it's like when you start to get to where you can look at the why and go deeper and deeper in the why for a process perspective, like Lean Six Sigma is all about how do you do it fastest, easiest, less, how do you get
Right.
something done easy and fast, like take all the friction out of the process. And so you would ask with every point of the process that they're currently using, why do you do this? Okay, we do it because of this. Well, why? Oh, we do it because of this. Well, why?
Yeah.
Right? Because in a process flow, it's like your life. Think about
Yeah.
your life as a process flow. So if you want to get out of the emotion of it and look at logic, some people like logic of their lives, just look at it as a, professional process improvement person or something. Just look at your life as a routine or a process. And it's like, okay, well, like when you go to Taco Bell, you go to the drive through, you tell them what you want. In the background, somebody's typing in your order. So it kicks off the process, right? Then that order goes over here. They read it, then they know if it's a taco and if they should put meat in it, and then they should put the cheese. But knowing the why, like Taco Bell's super fast, right?
Yeah.
And you go to like other places that aren't so fast.
Yeah.
What's in the background? What is their process that they're using? How
Right.
can we make that faster? Why do you do that? Is that necessary? Let's take that out and let's go faster. That's why, like In-N-Out Burger, I don't know if any of you guys have been there. Now they're out on the curb, right? With the little, let me take
Oh
your
yeah.
order before you even
Yeah.
get there because
Yeah.
we know it's
Chick-fil-A does
fast.
that too. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's all, well, why do they do that? Because it makes this work better. So you can do the same thing. And if something's not working, why do I do that? Like, what is it about this thing that I keep doing that?
Right.
And there's an exercise I learned in one of the, every coach needs a coach, right? You can't see what you can't see.
Yeah.
But so there was one technique that I loved, and they called it the Rut Exercise.
Hmm.
And it's basically like a big circle. You can just draw a big circle on a piece of paper of something that has been like this cyclical thing you keep doing over and over and over,
Okay.
right? Oh, I say I'm going to go to the gym, I'm not. Then I go back home and I eat chips. And then I say I'm going to go to the gym, right? So you do the whole thing. And then you think about, you start putting on the circle all the decision points you have, right? So the first decision is that you decided you want to go to the gym. What's the next decision that you would need to make? Well, what time am I going to go?
Okay.
And then what decisions am I making? What are three different options I have that I could pick? Maybe it's the same one. Maybe, yeah, I want to do the same thing because that's working. Okay, so then you go to the next piece in the circle. What's the next decision? Okay, well, now it's 5 o'clock when I said I was going to go, but I don't want to go.
All
Well,
right.
what got in your way? What are three things you could do instead? And so then you can start looking at your choices to say, okay, well, I keep doing this. What are two other things I could do? Again, another Tony thing
Yeah.
is um, there is no choice. Three is a choice. One is not a choice, and two is not a choice. It's an either or. Like you don't have a choice until you have three options. And there's always at least three options.
Hmm.
Always. You
Yeah.
might have to get creative. There's always three things, right? So maybe 5 o'clock just isn't your thing. Maybe you can decide to do it at noon. Maybe you decide to do it, another time. That you do that little rut
Right.
exercise could be really powerful for those of you who are listening, for your audience. Is it's super easy. You know the steps because you've done them
Yeah.
933
Right.
times,
Yeah.
right? You get in the same rut. And then when you go to each point, just draw the little points, put in the three choices, and then see, well, what if I did something different here?
Yeah.
Would that change my circle? Like, would it now become a little squiggle instead and not go back to the beginning?
There you go. Alter that path. That's something,
Right.
you know. Well, how can people, walk their talk, and is it focused discipline? Is it, like you said, this rut exercise? It seems like
Yeah.
it's a repetition or a combination of all that. It's fill us in on that because it seems like it's a
Yeah.
combination.
Speaking of, so Walk the Talk Weekend, I named my program Walk the Talk Weekend, which is my foundational program that anybody who ever does anything with me goes through this. And It's 2.5 days. And the first day is about clarity, which is what I talked about, right? Like you get
Yeah.
clarity. And it's like I associate it with the snow globe when you shake up a snow globe in our heads, like you just want the snow to stop. Like let it settle, go right. Like even just in that moment, you could
Yeah.
feel, you could even imagine like that snow settling, right? That's
Yeah.
day one of like, let's just get the snow to settle. And this is something you can do in your own life too, right? But sometimes you need a big group to be like, I'm making this happen today. And then you get that clarity, but then what do you do with that, right? So then it becomes, let's think about how you're feeling, how you want to feel instead, and get what is in your life when you have those feelings. And then you start to create what we do on day two, which is certainty around now you've taken all the shoulds out,
Hmm.
right? You get rid of all the shoulds and you test what's left. Is this like a should test, until you get down to 7 maps. I call them the core 7 things that matter most to you,
Okay.
like non-negotiable. 7 things. And until you have those 7 things, I have found you are not going to change
Wow.
your life. It just, other things are going to get in the way. It's
Right.
just the way it is. There's so many things to pick from. If you're picking from 93, there's something's going to get missed,
Yeah.
right? But if you know there are 7 things that you want your experience of life to include, 7's manageable. Like we
Yeah.
could do 7, right? And then from there, every single decision you ever make, you do a litmus test. Okay, what of my core 7 does this hit? Okay, well, it hits family, tight knit family. Okay, well, then I will consider that. Okay, now we'll do the next one. Let's say something happens at work. And I used this one before of, let's say you have a choice to go to a happy hour.
Right.
So in consulting, it's a big thing. You got to do the networking thing, right? You got to, I
Yeah.
said that, got to, but, or is it a want to, right? But then you have your family.
Yeah.
So, which is also value. So work is a value to make money to fund your vision, and family is a value so you don't miss out on your kids. So now we have, it hits 2. Now what? Well, then you start to think about, okay, well, what's the impact of not going home?
Yeah.
Like, are they even going to be awake? He's probably going to be asleep and I'm going to go home and I'm going to be tired anyway. And there's not going to be any quality time. What if I don't go to the happy hour? Well, that means I'm not going to talk to Jack, and Jack is a big deal. He needs to know who I am if I'm going to make partner. So that's the best possible, like it's a great opportunity. So will that give me value in my life? Yes. Will it destroy my relationship with my kids? No, because I'll make a point of tomorrow finding a way to have energy for them and take them to the park, right?
Yeah.
But all I had to do is think of those couple of things.
Yeah.
If you have lots of ways of thinking of it and you don't have like this certainty point of, I know what my 7 are and these are all the things that it needs to meet, then your brain just can get overwhelmed super easy. We just start making decisions but we don't feel like we're in alignment, but we don't know why, right? Like it just
Yeah.
becomes this whole thing, the snow globe thing, right? And then the last day for walking the talk, which is activating, which is what you're talking about, the activating when you have 7.
Right.
Now it's okay. How do I line up everything I do with those 7?
Okay.
And it's not as hard as you might think. But it's like you said, training, right? If we don't have the tools, it goes through when you think about awareness, desire, knowledge, right? So now you've got knowledge, ability is the next one, and then reinforcement. So what's going to give you the ability? You're
Right.
not just going to know how to do it. Yeah, that's why people, like you have your podcast and you show
Yeah.
up because
Yeah.
you know people, it's not going to be like one podcast. Like you want to come back and hear Bob again because you
Yeah.
know he's going to bring something good, right? So that's why in the programs that I teach, it's always, well, how can I teach you how to do it in your own life? I don't have to know how to do Bob's life.
Right.
I just know how to help Bob know the process or the alignment of here's how you use the core 7 to do your own life, but it's a way of keeping it simple, bringing all that stuff into your life in a way that snow globe is not like this. You actually get to see what's inside,
Yeah.
and like enjoy it. So that's, when you think about that, one, of course, I recommend coming to Walk the Talk weekend
Yeah.
where you can get solid. Because once you do that, once you have your 7 and 2.5 days, like what's 2.5 days of your life, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's the whole thing. You think about it, it's a small portion of the grand scheme of things.
Right. Well, and to your audience, I wanted to gift that program. So it's regularly an $897 program. But for
Wow.
anybody who writes the source, if you go to walkthetalkweekend.com, you could just put in the source word, ask where'd you hear, put encouragement engineering or Bob in the source, and then I'll know to give it to you as a gift for free,
Wow.
just as a gift for you guys.
Wow. Well, let's so everybody knows. Let's make sure we get that website again. If you can
Walk
tell
the
us
Talk
again.
Weekend. Yep, walkthetalkweekend.com.
Okay. And put in
Yeah,
encouragement engineer or Bob, and that's a free gift for you for that
yeah,
walk the week. Wow, thank you so much for that offer. Wow.
yeah, absolutely. I never like to give a solution without a way to activate it, right?
Yeah.
And in the end, I mean, you don't have to wait to do some of these cool things. But first of all, why you wouldn't do it beyond me. At least go to the website, check it out.
Yeah.
But the reason I do it, you brought up Dean Graziosi,
Yeah.
right? Dean Graziosi is big on helping people bring their own skills to other people, like
Right.
teaching people how to teach other people how to do their thing. And what he explained is it's not, you are doing a disservice to people when you don't give your
Right.
gift, right?
Right.
Like when you don't help people, you're doing a disservice to them by not finding a way to help them. So like you showing up every day, doing Bob Brumm every day is awesome. Like that you're doing your thing. You were getting your gift by showing up. So when you know your core seven, that's all you got to do and just show up and be you. And that's the purpose in and of itself. Like it's not big search hunt, it's just
Great. Yeah, it's
knowing
defined.
those things. Yeah,
Great.
exactly.
Well, Stacy, wow, amazing. Well, we're running low on time, but I want to get this in quick. I want to thank you so much for the time today. So thank you for being a guest on the Encouragement Engineering podcast today. And people, we will make sure we put all this in the show notes because that's a great offer. And I want to thank you so much again for that. That is so awesome. I know the listeners will appreciate that. That's action in place. So
Yeah.
take advantage of that. So let's do that. So Stacy, thank you again for the time today. I really appreciate you being a guest on the Encouragement Engineering podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. You have a great one.
You too. Take care.
All right.